delivering a State of the Union address. This will be his third before a joint session of Congress. Now, the speech comes during an election year where President Biden is fighting for a second term in the White House. It's likely to be a rematch of the 2020 race. Tonight's speech isn't just about his policy agenda, but it's also him making a case to the voters in prime time. Now, following the president's speech, first-term Alabama Senator Katie Britt will be delivering the Republican response. And after the president's speech and the GOP response, it's your turn. We'll want to hear from you. How would you describe the State of the Union? What resonated with you in President Biden's speech and the Republican response? We'll listen to your voices and messages via phone and social media, live here on C-SPAN, cspan.org, and on our free C-SPAN Now app. Well, good evening, and thanks for joining C-SPAN for this evening's State of the Union address. In just a few minutes, President and Mrs. Biden will be leaving the White House to drive the 16 blocks up to the Capitol. We'll be able to watch that. We'll also see the Senate gather as a body on their half of the Capitol and walk over to the House side where the State of the Union is held. We'll be able to see that as well. Right outside the House chamber is Statuary Hall. And joining us there, along with the rest of the media, is Catherine Tully McManus of Politico. Catherine, the State of the Union has really become quite an event here in Washington, hasn't it?
Absolutely. The Capitol is already buzzing. The president isn't even here yet. The Capitol is packed with guests, lawmakers, all preparing for the president's speech tonight.
Given that this is an election year, how important is this speech to the president, or the perception, at least, of the speech?
This is Biden's big bid for a second term. This is an enormous audience that he will have, both, of course, in the chamber, but those folks already know who they're voting for in November. But the television audience is one of both parties, as opposed to, maybe rallies and other speeches that he'll give, which will be surrounded by supporters. This is his chance to speak to the nation about what he believes that he has accomplished in his time already as president and what he intends to accomplish going forward. He'll be trying to mark wins. He will be trying to count the reduction and flattening of inflation as a win. He will be trying to tackle healthcare costs as a win. Whereas, of course, Republicans in the chamber will not be clapping for those accomplishments.
Catherine Tully McManus, what about looking ahead? What have we heard about the speech in the next 4 years, if he wins?
Yeah, sure.
Well, one thing in the very near term is that during the speech, he will be calling for a military-built plateau outside of Gaza to ease the entrance of aid into the Gaza territories, which have been besieged, of course, by Israeli counterattacks. But aid has not been reaching at the rate that the president and the U.S. has been satisfied with. He's hoping to lend U.S. response in order to ease that aid. And that is something that his allies, especially on the progressive end of his party, will be looking for, is that acknowledgement of the situation in Gaza as Israel and Hamas are at war. Other things that he will be pledging to do and remarking on is that oil and natural gas exports and production is at its highest level in history in the U.S. right now. He will be trying to counter a Republican point that moving to green energy has been creating an energy dependence internationally for the U.S., and he'll be trying to counter that by pointing out that energy production with oil and natural gas are at an all-time high under his leadership.
Now, Catherine, over the last couple of years, there's been a bit of a change in decorum at the State of the Union, with Nancy Pelosi ripping up one of Donald Trump's speeches, some of the members shouting at the president, etc. Do we expect any of that activity tonight?
We do. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson did make a plea to his conference earlier this week to keep decorum, to, listen intently, and not heckle the president as we saw last year, in part because that heckling from Marjorie Taylor Greene, from Lauren Boebert on the Republican side of the aisle, Biden came right back and was seen as coming away strong with that interaction about entitlements and government programs. And Republicans do not want President Biden to come off looking sharp and responsive, and that he can counterattack Republicans if they come after him during the speech. You are correct that this has been a huge departure in recent years. It really did used to be a staid, respectful affair, even from the opposition party within the Congress. But these days, things have changed. Tempers are running very, very high, and of course, rhetoric is hotter than ever. And so we do expect outbursts tonight, especially on the Republican side of the aisle, despite their leadership making a plea for them to stay calm.
And Catherine Tully McManus with Politico. As always, we appreciate your joining us from Statuary Hall outside the House chamber.
Thank you.
Well, also joining us this evening is C-SPAN's Greta Bronner. Hi, Greta.
Good evening. This week on C-SPAN, we've been asking our viewers to participate in a poll ahead of tonight's State of the Union address, and you can do so now as well. Just scan the QR code that we're going to put on your screen right there, or go to cspan.org/poll. The question that we asked all of you is, what issue is most important ahead of the President's State of the Union address? You can see some of the options that you have to participate: the economy, inflation, immigration, border security, etc. This is how people have been responding this week. 34% of the people that we asked, that's the most, said immigration and border security is the most important issue ahead of the President's State of the Union address. Now, the White House has said, according to a reporter on Capitol Hill, that President Biden is not going to be making any announcements on executive orders for border security ahead or during his State of the Union address. The preference is still that Congress legislates this issue. We also hit the streets here in the Washington, D.C. area to ask folks who are here in town that question: what is the most important issue ahead of the State of the Union? Listen to the responses.
Hi, my name is Joyce Schneider. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and I'd like the president to take care and close the border because we're getting too many people, illegals in here, and it's just getting overwhelming and a lot of crime.
Hi, I'm Aisha. I'm from New Jersey, and I think something I would like to see the president address on Thursday is anything related to Gaza and Palestine. Yeah, it's very important right now, and it just sucks to see ignorance and people not talking about it and choosing to look at it in one way.
Hi, my name is Jacob Brownfree. I'm a postdoc fellow at Johns Hopkins University in the Agora Institute. I do research in intellectual history and social theory. And I think the most important issue that I'd love to see the president discuss in the State of the Union is the danger that artificial intelligence poses to our civilization, particularly in the way in which I think it might undermine our ability to have a fully employed economy and might threaten our culture.
Hello, my name is Julia. I'm from Vermont. During the State of the Union, I would love to hear the president address our unity as a country. I think it's a very important topic that spans multiple issues. In all states in the U.S., there are issues with unity and with coming together as a nation to make us stronger and better.
And the President's State of the Union address is due to begin at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. That's in about 40 minutes or so, 50 minutes. And obviously, we will be live. Last year, President Biden's State of the Union address ran 72 minutes and 41 seconds. In 2022, it was 62 minutes. Now, in 2021, he delivered an economic speech that began his presidency. It wasn't an official State of the Union. That was 64 minutes, 58 seconds. Let's compare those to the averages of previous presidents. Ronald Reagan, about 38 minutes. George H.W. Bush, 45.5 minutes. Bill Clinton, 70 minutes. George W. Bush, 52 minutes. President Obama went for about 61, 62 minutes in his speeches. Donald Trump, averaged 79 minutes and 42 seconds, and Joe Biden's average now is 63 minutes and 29 seconds. Want to remind you that you can join our conversation tonight and comment on the State of the Union speech anytime on Facebook and on X. Just remember, at C-SPAN is our handle for those. And if you're away from your TV, you can watch us live on our C-SPAN Now app. Well, earlier, Greta Bronner sat down with Mohammed Yunus. He's the editor-in-chief of the Gallup poll. They had a discussion about the president's job approval ratings. Here's part of their conversation.
Mr. Yunus, what do the poll numbers say?
Well, President Biden right now is at a 38% overall approval rating. That's actually a decline from where he was back just in January, and it's actually 2 points lower than his 3-year average. So our latest read on President Biden is not promising for his camp. Back in January, we did an analysis where we compared where President Biden was just then and where all previous presidents in modern history were at that same moment. And when we did that analysis, when he was 4 points higher than he is now, he was behind every single president, going all the way back to President Eisenhower. At 41% at the time, the only person close to him was President Obama at 45. But interestingly, President Obama made a pretty notable turn in his approval rating in that last year, really in the last 3 quarters of his first term, to end it with a 52% approval rating pre-election.
And we will see a little bit more of that conversation that Greta had with Mohammed Yunus a little bit later in our program. But ever since 1982, when President Reagan brought Lenny Skutnik, hero of the Air Florida crash, to the State of the Union, presidents have been inviting guests to sit with the First Lady up in the gallery. The role of the guest is to add to the president's message on certain themes and policy priorities. Among President Biden's guests tonight, 2 mothers. Katie Cox is from Texas. She spoke out nationally about reproductive care and her emergency need for an abortion. She was unable to get one in Texas after Roe v. Wade was overturned and the state's ban after the ruling. Another mother who is a guest to the president tonight, Latoria Beasley from Alabama. She was undergoing IVF when the Alabama Supreme Court ruled an embryo as a person, and those caught destroying embryos could be held legally accountable. This threw IVF in Alabama in limbo until action by the Alabama legislature, with several clinics stopping IVF services. A third guest, UAW Chief Shawn Fain. Let's go back to Greta Bronner.
Members of Congress also get to invite guests to tonight's State of the Union. They each get 1 guest. Families of American hostages in Gaza are expected to be in attendance with members of Congress. Senator Tim Kaine has invited the first IVF person born in the United States to be his guest. And Speaker Johnson invited the parents of journalist Evan Gershkovich, who is being held in Russia. Senator Tammy Duckworth, and along with other Democrats earlier today, held a news conference to talk about the issue of IVF following that decision by the Alabama Supreme Court and the importance of it. The president is expected to talk about reproductive rights as well tonight. Here's a little bit about what the senator had to say on this issue.
A few weeks from now, I'm going to get to hold my younger daughter in my lap as she squeezes her eyes shut, makes a wish, and blows out 6 candles on her birthday cake. I get to have my 9-year-old run up and pull on my sleeve, begging for a piece without the frosting, because she doesn't like the frosting. I don't know how she's my daughter, but apparently she does not like frosting on her cake. I'll cherish every moment of it, as I always do. This year, though, I already know that it'll feel a little bit different, that I'll feel even more grateful than normal. Because, you see, after a decade of struggling with infertility, after my service in Iraq, I was only able to get pregnant through the miracle that is IVF. IVF is the reason that there are birthday cakes and birthday candles and birthday wishes and birthday gifts for both of my girls in the first place.
Now, as we mentioned earlier, giving the Republican response this evening is Alabama Senator Katie Britt. Here's a little bit more about her. She's in her first term as senator. She's 42 years old, lives in Montgomery, Alabama with her husband and 2 kids. She's an attorney, graduate of the University of Alabama Law School. Now, Senator Britt worked for a long time for Alabama Senator Richard Shelby, who endorsed her when he retired from the Senate. Well, let's return to Greta's interview with Mohammed Yunus of the Gallup organization about voter satisfaction.
President Biden right now is behind. It's not just in approval; it's in people's overall satisfaction with how things are going in the country. The question of asking, "Are you better off 3 years ago than you are today?" Just to give you a point of reference, in 2020, 61% of Americans said that they were better off 3 years ago than they were at the time. Today, that 61% is down to 48. So President Biden faces a lot of tough metrics. If past is a reason to assume the future, and there are a lot of reasons to not necessarily see that outcome this year in this election because of all the unpredictable variables that you and others have been discussing.
And we expect the president and Mrs. Biden to be leaving the White House shortly for that 16-block drive up Pennsylvania Avenue to the Capitol. We'll hope to show you them walking out. We're also expecting the Senate to come into session and then walk as a body over to the House side of the Capitol, and they will be parading there through Statuary Hall. That's a live picture of Statuary Hall. You'll also see the president's cabinet come through there, the Joint Chiefs, et cetera, et cetera. We'll capture as much of that as possible. Now, once the House lights come on, we will shut up here at C-SPAN, and we will let you see what's going on the House floor as the members gather to hear the president's speech tonight. There is an additional 8 cameras on the floor of the House for tonight's speech. So you'll be able to see all of the action. Let's return to Greta Brawner. Hi, Greta.
While we wait for the president to leave the White House and for those lights to come on in the House, as you said, a little bit about tonight's speech from reporters. This is breaking news from NBC earlier today. In his State of the Union address Thursday, President Biden is expected to announce that the U.S. military will establish a port on Gaza's coast that will be used to get aid in. And as we told you earlier, this is from Jackie Heinrich with Fox News. A White House official tells me President Biden is not going to be making any announcements on executive orders for border security ahead of or during tonight's speech. And then there is this from Jim Vandehei of Axios. President Biden will use tonight's State of the Union address to admit that prices are still too high in some areas, but argue things were worse under the former president. And there is also this from NBC News. In his State of the Union address, President Biden will highlight the post-COVID economic recovery and lay out the administration's plans to revamp the tax code, expand housing supply, and reduce the federal budget deficit. Here's a little bit more on that reporting from Jeff Stein of the Washington Post. The president is expected to announce a 25% minimum tax on billionaires, quadruple stock buyback tax, create a new corporate minimum tax of 21%, and ban firms from deduction costs of paying salaries over $1 million off of federal taxes. Reproductive rights also expected to be talked about. Here's an excerpt from the president's speech tonight. In its decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court majority wrote, "Women are not without electoral or political power." No kidding. Clearly, those bragging about overturning Roe v. Wade have no clue about the power of women in America. But they found out that when reproductive freedom was on the ballot and won in 2022, 23, and they will find out again in 2024. The president is expected to go on and say this: if Americans send me a Congress that supports the right to choose, I promise you I will restore Roe v. Wade as the law of the land again. Peter?
Well, after the president's speech tonight, he will be hitting the campaign trail. He has 2 campaign events, one tomorrow in Philadelphia, and then on Saturday in Atlanta. You'll be able to see these on C-SPAN. And by the way, all campaign 2024 coverage is available at cspan.org for you to watch when you want and where you want. Well, earlier this week, Speaker Mike Johnson previewed what he felt was a State of the Union. We'll get to that in just a minute. The Senate is just coming into session. This is where they gather on their side of the Capitol, and in a minute they will line up and they will walk over to the House side as a group. And that's a live picture of the Senate in their chamber. They're getting ready to walk over to the House side. That will be about a 2-minute walk. They'll go through Statuary Hall where all the media is gathered, and we'll be able to catch them there as well. The President's cabinet will come through that little aisle there you see in the center into the House chamber. The Joint Chiefs, several of the Supreme Court justices as well. The speech is due to begin in about 35 minutes. The president has not left the White House as of yet, and we hope to catch him and Mrs. Biden as they leave the White House as well. The House lights have not come up in the House yet, and when that happens and the members start gathering on the floor, we will go live and we will be quiet and you'll be able to watch the scene. 8 additional cameras are on the floor. Now, after the speech and the Republican response, of course, it's your turn. We'll want to hear your voices and your thoughts about the State of the Union, about the president's speech, the Republican response, etc. That will be after the speech. This is live coverage of the 2024 State of the Union on C-SPAN. And it looks like the Senate's about to depart. We've seen both Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer, the 2 leaders there, and eagle-eyed viewers, longtime C-SPAN 2 watchers will note that former Senator Patrick Leahy was there as well. And he's no longer a senator, but he has privileges. There's Vice President Harris joining the group, and she'll escort with them over across the Capitol. And looks like there's some activity at the White House as well. We expect the President and Mrs. Biden to depart from the South Portico in just a few minutes, and we'll catch that action as well. The House lights in the Capitol, in the House, should be coming up in about 5 minutes or so. When that happens, that means a lot of the members are on the floor. We'll have TV coverage, and we'll be able to watch 20, 25 minutes of coverage before the speech begins. Now, after President Biden's speech, Katie Britt, first-term senator, Alabama, will be giving the Republican response. She's 42 years old, a longtime legislative aide to former Senator Richard Shelby. She is the youngest GOP woman senator ever elected. So, and she'll be giving the response about 5 minutes after the president finishes. Let's return to the Capitol and potentially to the White House as well. And you can see the Senate there walking through Statuary Hall into the House chamber. We expect the president to be leaving shortly from the White House, 16 blocks up Pennsylvania Avenue. Of course, he doesn't have to stop for traffic or lights, so it's not a long drive for him. And the lights in the House chamber should be coming on momentarily. So we will be going to that as well, show you the action on the House floor. President's State of the Union address due to begin at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, about 24 minutes from now.
President, how you feeling, sir?
Feeling good. Jump, I need you. See y'all later.
Yeah, for you.
And you're watching members of the House and Senate gather on the House floor live. We're about 10 minutes away from the State of the Union. And as you can see, the president just left the White House, seemingly a little late. Greta Bronner, do you have any information on that?
Yeah, the Washington Post noted about 20 minutes ago that ceasefire protesters were occupying the route the president takes, his motorcade takes, from the White House to the Capitol. Around 250 were sitting on Pennsylvania Avenue. The protesters projected Biden's legacy as genocide onto the East Building of the National Gallery of Art and are demanding that the U.S. end funding to Israel. So not sure if that is what delayed the president's departure. He is expected to speak toward the top of the hour or a little after, but that is from the Washington Post. Live coverage here of the State of the Union on C-SPAN.
The joint session will come to order. The chair appoints as members of the committee on the part of the House to escort the President of the United States into the chamber. The gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Scalise. The gentleman from Minnesota, Mr. Emmer. The gentlewoman from New York, Ms. Stefanik. The gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Hudson. The gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Palmer. The gentleman from Utah, Mr. Moore. The gentlewoman from Michigan, Mrs. McClain. The House will be in order. The House will be in order. The gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Cole. The gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Reschenthaler. The gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Rogers. The gentleman from New York, Mr. Jeffries. The gentlewoman from Massachusetts, Ms. Clark. The gentleman from California, Mr. Aguilar. The gentleman from California, Mr. Liu. The gentlewoman from Washington, Ms. Del Bene. The gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Neguse. The gentlewoman from Illinois, Ms. Underwood. The gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. Escobar. The gentlewoman from Massachusetts, Ms. Trahan. The gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Kildee.
The President of the Senate, at the direction of that body, appoints the following senators as members of the committee on the part of the Senate to escort the President of the United States into the House chamber. The Senator from New York, Mr. Schumer. The Senator from Illinois, Mr. Durbin. The Senator from Washington, Mrs. Murray. The Senator from Michigan, Ms. Stabenow. The Senator from Minnesota, Ms. Klobuchar. The Senator from Virginia, Mr. Warner. The Senator from Wisconsin, Ms. Baldwin. The Senator from Kentucky, Mr. McConnell. The Senator from South Dakota, Mr. Thune. The Senator from Wyoming, Mr. Barrasso. The Senator from West Virginia, Mrs. Capito. And the Senator from Iowa, Ms. Ernst.
The members of the Escort Committee will exit the chamber through the lobby doors.
The Dean of the Diplomatic Corps. Mr. Speaker, the Chief Justice and Associate Justices of the Supreme Court. Mr. Speaker, the President's Cabinet.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
Good to see you, Mr. President. This is about you. This is about the soul of the nation.
This guy has complete integrity. Come back. All right. Thank you for everything. We got to get a good selfie. Give him helmet, President. Yeah.
see you. God love you. All right, we're going this way? Yes, sir. Tony. Thank you. Senator Jill. Good evening. Good evening. If I were smart, I'd go home now. Mr. Speaker, Madam Vice President, members of Congress, my fellow Americans, in January 1941, Franklin Roosevelt came to this chamber to speak to the nation, and he said, "I address you at a moment unprecedented in the history of the Union. Hitler was on the march. War was raging in Europe. President Roosevelt's purpose was to wake up Congress and alert the American people that this was no ordinary time. Freedom and democracy were under assault in the world. Tonight, I come to this same chamber to address the nation. Now, it's we who face an unprecedented moment in the history of the Union. And yes, my purpose tonight is to wake up the Congress and alert the American people that this is no ordinary moment either. Not since President Lincoln and the Civil War have freedom and democracy been under assault at home as they are today. What makes our moment rare is that freedom and democracy are under attack both at home and overseas at the very same time. Overseas, Putin of Russia is on the march, invading Ukraine and sowing chaos throughout Europe and beyond. If anybody in this room thinks Putin will stop at Ukraine, I assure you he will not. But Ukraine Ukraine can stop Putin. Ukraine can stop Putin if we stand with Ukraine and provide the weapons that needs to defend itself. That is all. That is all Ukraine is asking. They're not asking for American soldiers. In fact, there are no American soldiers at war in Ukraine, and I'm determined to keep it that way. But now, assistance to Ukraine is being blocked by those who want to walk away from our world leadership. It wasn't long ago when a Republican president named Ronald Reagan thundered, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." Now, my predecessor, a former Republican president, tells Putin, quote, "Do whatever the hell you want." That's a quote. A former president actually said that, bowing down to a Russian leader. I think it's outrageous, it's dangerous, and it's unacceptable. America is a founding member of NATO, the military alliance of democratic nations created after World War II to prevent war and keep the peace. And today, we've made NATO stronger than ever. We welcomed Finland to the alliance last year. And just this morning, Sweden officially joined, and their minister is here tonight. We're going to stand up. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And they know how to fight. Mr. Prime Minister, welcome to NATO, the strongest military alliance the world has ever seen. I say this to Congress, we have to stand up to Putin. Send me a bipartisan national security bill. History is literally watching. History is watching. If the United States walks away, it will put Ukraine at risk. Europe is at risk. The free world will be at risk, emboldening others to do what they wish to do us harm. My message to President Putin, who I've known for a long time, is simple. We will not walk away. We will not bow down. I will not bow down. In a literal sense, history is watching. History is watching. Just like history watched 3 years ago on January 6th, when insurrectionists stormed this very Capitol and placed a dagger to the throat of American democracy. Many of you were here on that darkest of days. We all saw with our own eyes the insurrectionists were not patriots. They'd come to stop the peaceful transfer of power, to overturn the will of the people. January 6th lies about the 2020 election and the plots to steal the election posed a gravest threat to U.S. democracy since the Civil War. But they failed. America stood. America stood strong, and democracy prevailed. We must be honest. The threat to democracy must be defended. My predecessor and some of you here seek to bury the truth about January 6th. I will not do that. This is the moment to speak the truth and to bury the lies. Here's the simple truth. You can't love your country only when you win. As I've done ever since being elected to office, I ask all of you, without regard to party, to join together and defend democracy. Remember your oath of office to defend against all threats, foreign and domestic. Respect free and fair elections. Restore trust in our institutions. And make clear political violence has absolutely no place in America, zero place. Again, it's not hyperbole to suggest history is watching. We're watching. Your children and grandchildren will read about this day and what we do. History is watching another assault on freedom. Joining us tonight is Latoya Beasley, a social worker from Birmingham, Alabama. 14 months ago, she and her husband welcomed a baby girl thanks to the miracle of IVF. She scheduled treatments to have that second child, but the Alabama Supreme Court shut down IVF treatments across the state, unleashed by a Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade. She was told her dream would have to wait. What her family had got through should never have happened. Unless Congress acts, it could happen again. So tonight, let's stand up for families like hers. To my friends across the aisle, don't keep this waiting any longer. Guarantee the right to AVF. Guarantee it nationwide. Like most Americans, I believe Roe v. Wade got it right. I thank Vice President Harris for being an incredible leader, defending reproductive freedom, and so much more. Thank you. My predecessor came to office determined to see Roe v. Wade overturned. He's the reason it was overturned, and he brags about it. Look at the chaos that has resulted. Joining us tonight is Kate Cox, the wife and mother from Dallas. She's become pregnant again and had a fetus of a fatal condition. Her doctor told Kate that her own life and her ability to have children in the future were at risk if she didn't act. Because Texas law banned her ability to act, Kate and her husband had to leave the state to get what she needed. What her family got through should have never happened as well, but it's happening in too many others. There are state laws banning the freedom to choose, criminalizing doctors, forcing survivors of rape and incest to leave their states to get the treatment they need. Many of you in this chamber and my predecessor are promising to pass a national ban on reproductive freedom. My God, what freedom else would you take away? Look, it's a decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. The Supreme Court majority wrote the following, and with all due respect, justices, women are not without electoral power. Electoral or political power. You're about to realize just how much you're right about that. Clearly, those bragging about overturning Roe v. Wade have no clue about the power of women. But they found out when reproductive freedom was on the ballot. We won in 2022 and 2020, and we'll win again in 2024. If you, the American people, send me a Congress that supports the right to choose, I promise you, I'll restore Roe v. Wade as the law of the land again. Folks, America cannot go back. I'm here tonight to show what I believe is the way forward, because I know how far we come. 4 years ago next week, before I came to office, the country was hit by the worst pandemic and the worst economic crisis in a century. Remember the fear, record losses? Remember the spikes in crime and the murder rate, raging virus? that took more than 1 million American lives, of loved ones, millions left behind. A mental health crisis of isolation and loneliness. A president, my predecessor, failed the most basic presidential duty that he owes to American people, the duty to care. I think that's unforgivable. I came to office determined to get us through one of the toughest periods in the nation's history. We have. It doesn't make news in 1,000 cities and towns. The American people are writing the greatest comeback story never told. So let's tell the story here. Tell it here and now. America's comeback is building the future of American possibilities, building an economy from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down, investing in all America, in all Americans, to make sure everyone has a fair shot, and we leave no one behind. The pandemic no longer controls our lives. The vaccines that saved us from COVID are now being used to beat cancer, turning setback into comeback. That's what America does. That's what America does. Folks, my inherited economy is on the brink. Now our economy is literally the envy of the world. 15 million new jobs in just 3 years, a record, a record. Unemployment at 50-year lows. A record 16 million Americans are starting small businesses, and each one is a literal act of hope. With historic job growth and small business growth for Black and Hispanics and Asian Americans, 800,000 new manufacturing jobs in America and counting. Where is it written we can't be the manufacturing capital of the world? We are, and we will. More people have health insurance today. More people have health insurance today than ever before. The racial wealth gap is as small as it's been in 20 years. Wages keep going up, inflation keeps coming down. Inflation has dropped from 9% to 3%, the lowest in the world, and tending lower. The landing is and will be soft. And now, instead of importing foreign products and exporting American jobs, we're exporting American products and creating American jobs. Right here in America, where they belong. And it takes time, but the American people are beginning to feel it. Consumer studies show consumer confidence is soaring. Buy America has been the law of the land since the 1930s. Past administrations, including my predecessor, including some Democrats as well in the past, failed to buy American. Not anymore. On my watch, federal projects that you fund, like helping build American roads, bridges, and highways, will be made with American products and built by American workers. Creating good-paying American jobs. And thanks to our CHIPS and Science Act, the United States is investing more in research and development than ever before. During the pandemic, a shortage of semiconductors, chips, that drove up the price of everything from cell phones to automobiles. And by the way, we invented those chips right here in America. Well, instead of having to import them, private companies are now investing billions of dollars to build new chip factories here in America, creating tens of thousands of jobs. Many of those jobs paying $100,000 a year and don't require a college degree. In fact, my policies have attracted $650 billion in private sector investment in clean energy, advanced manufacturing, creating tens of thousands of jobs here in America. And thanks to our bipartisan infrastructure law, 46,000 new projects have been announced all across your communities. And by the way, I noticed some of you strongly voted against it, or they're cheering on that money coming in. I like it. I'm with you. I'm with you. And if any of you don't want that money in your district, just let me know. Modernizing our roads and bridges, ports and airports, public transit systems. Removing poisonous lead pipes so every child can drink clean water without risk of brain damage. Providing affordable high-speed internet for every American, no matter where you live, urban, suburban, or rural communities, in red states and blue states. Record investments in tribal communities. Because of my investment in a family farm, because I invested in family farms led by my Secretary of Agriculture, who knows more about this than anybody I know, we're better able to stay in the family for those farms and their children and grandchildren won't have to leave home to make a living. It's transformative. The great comeback story is Belvidere, Illinois, home to an auto plant for nearly 60 years. Before I came to office, the plant was on its way to shutting down. Thousands of workers feared for their livelihoods. Hope was fading. Then I was elected to office, and we raised the Belvidere repeatedly with auto companies, knowing unions would make all the difference. The UAW worked like hell to keep the plant open and get these jobs back, and together we succeeded. Instead of auto factories shutting down, auto factories reopening, and new state-of-the-art battery factories being built to power those cars there at the same. The folks of Belvidere, I say, instead of your town being left behind, your community is moving forward again. Because instead of watching auto jobs of the future go overseas, 4,000 union jobs with higher wages are building the future in Belvidere right here in America. Here tonight is UAW President Shawn Fain, a great friend and a great labor leader. Shawn, where are you? Stand up. And Dawn Sim, a third-generation worker, UAW worker at Belvidere. Shawn, I was proud to be the first president to stand on the picket line, and today, Dawn has a good job in her hometown, providing stability for her family and pride and dignity as well. Showing once again, Wall Street didn't build America. They're not bad guys. They didn't build it, though. The middle class built the country, and unions built the middle class. I say to the American people, when America gets knocked down, we get back up. We keep going. That's America. That's you, the American people. It's because of you America's coming back. It's because of you our future is brighter. It's because of you that tonight we can proudly say the state of our union is strong and getting stronger. Tonight, I want to talk about the future of possibilities that we can build together. A future where the days of trickle-down economics are over, and the wealthy and the biggest corporations no longer get all the tax breaks. And by the way, I understand corporations. I come from a state that has more corporations invested than every one of your states in the state of the United States combined. And I represented it for 36 years. I'm not anti-corporation, but I grew up in a home where trickle-down economics didn't put much on my dad's kitchen table. That's why I determined to turn things around so middle class does well. When they do well, the poor go way up and the wealthy still do very well. We all do well. And there's more to do to make sure you're feeling the benefits of all we're doing. Americans pay more for prescription drugs than anywhere in the world. It's wrong, and I'm ending it. With the law that I proposed and signed, not one of you Republican buddies voted for it, we finally beat Big Pharma. Instead of paying $400 a month or thereabouts for insulin with diabetes, and it only costs $10 to make, they only get paid $35 a month now and still make a healthy profit. And I want to, but what to do next? I want to cap the cost of insulin at $35 a month for every American who needs it. Everyone. For years, people have talked about it, but finally we got it done and gave Medicare the power to negotiate lower prices on prescription drugs, just like the VA is able to do for veterans. That's not just saving seniors money, it's saving taxpayers money. We cut the federal deficit by $160 billion. Because Medicare will no longer have to pay those exorbitant prices to Big Pharma. This year, Medicare is negotiating lower prices for some of the costliest drugs on the market to treat everything from heart disease to arthritis. It's now time to go further and give Medicare the power to negotiate lower prices for 500 different drugs over the next decade. They're making a lot of money, guys. And they'll still be extremely profitable. Will not only save lives, it will save taxpayers another $200 billion. Starting next year, the same law caps total prescription drug costs for seniors on Medicare at $2,000 a year, even for expensive cancer drugs that cost $10,000, $12,000, $15,000. Now I want to cap prescription drug costs at $2,000 a year for everyone. Folks, I'm going to get in trouble for saying that, but if you want to get in Air Force One and fly to Toronto, Berlin, Moscow, well, even Moscow, probably. And bring your prescription with you, and I promise you I'll get it for you for 40% the cost you're paying now. Same company, same drug, same place. Folks, the Affordable Care Act, the old Obamacare, is still a very big deal. Over 100 million of you can no longer be denied health insurance because of pre-existing condition. Well, my predecessor and many in this chamber want to take this prescription drug away by repealing the Affordable Care Act. I'm not going to let that happen. We stopped you 50 times before, and we'll stop you again. In fact, I'm not only protecting it, I'm expanding it. We enacted tax credits of $800 per person per year, reduce health care costs for millions of working families. That tax credit expires next year. I want to make that savings permanent. To state the obvious, women are more than half our population. But research on women's health has always been underfunded. That's why we're launching the first ever White House initiative on women's health research, led by Jill, doing an incredible job as First Lady. We'll pass my plan for $12 billion to transfer women's health research and benefit millions of lives all across America. I know the cost of housing is so important to you. If inflation keeps coming down, mortgage rates will come down as well, and the Fed acknowledges that. But I'm not waiting. I want to provide an annual tax credit that will give Americans $400 a month for the next 2 years as mortgage rates come down, to put toward their mortgages when they buy their first home or trade up for a little more space. Just for 2 years. And my administration is also eliminating title insurance on federally backed mortgages. When you refinance your home, you can save $1,000 or more as a consequence. For millions of renters, we're cracking down on big landlords who use antitrust law, who break antitrust laws by price fixing and driving up rents. We've cut red tape so builders can get federally financing, which is already helping build a record 1.7 million new housing units nationwide. Now pass and build and renovate 2 million affordable homes and bring those rents down. To remain the strongest economy in the world, we need to have the best education system in the world. And I suspect all of you, want to give every child, a good start by providing access to preschool for 3 and 4 years old. You know, I think I pointed out last year that children coming from broken homes where there's no books, they're not read to, not spoken to very often, start school, kindergarten, or first grade, having heard 1 million fewer words spoken. Well, studies show that children who go to preschool are nearly 50% more likely to finish high school, go on to earn a 2- and 4-year degree, no matter what their background is. I met a year and a half ago with the leaders of the Business Roundtable. They were mad that they were angry. I think, well, they were discussing why I wanted to spend money on education. I pointed out to them as vice president, I met with over 182 of those folks. Don't hold me to the exact number. And I asked them what they need most, the CEOs. And you've had the same experience on both sides of the aisle. They say a better educated workforce, right? So I looked at them, and I say, I come from Delaware. DuPont used to be the 8th largest corporation in the world. And every new enterprise they bought, they educated the workforce to that enterprise. But none of you do that anymore. Why are you angry with me providing you the opportunity for the best educated workforce in the world? And they all looked at me and said, I think you're right. I want to expand high-quality tutoring and summer learning to see that every child learns to read by 3rd grade. I'm also connecting local businesses and high schools so students get hands-on experience and a path to a good-paying job, whether or not they go to college. And I want to make sure the college is more affordable. Let's continue increasing the Pell Grants to working and middle-class families and increase record investments in HBCUs and minority-serving institutions, including Hispanic institutions. And I was told I couldn't universally just change the way in which we dealt with student loans. I fixed 2 student loan programs that already existed to reduce the burden of student debt for nearly 4 million Americans, including nurses, firefighters, and others in public service. Like Keenan Jones, a public educator from Minnesota, who's here with us tonight. Keenan, where are you? Keenan, thank you. He's educated hundreds of students so they can go to college. Now he's able to help, after debt forgiveness, get his own daughter to college. And folks, look, such relief is good for the economy because folks are now able to buy a home, start a business, start a family. While we're at it, I want to give public school teachers a raise. And by the way, the first couple of years, we cut the deficit. Now, let me speak to the question of fundamental fairness for all Americans. I've been delivering real results in fiscally responsible ways. We've already cut the federal deficit. We've already cut the federal deficit over $1 trillion. I signed the bipartisan deal to cut another $1 trillion in the next decade. It's my goal to cut the federal deficit another $3 trillion by making big corporations and the very wealthy finally beginning to pay their fair share. Look, I'm a capitalist. If you want to make or can make $1 million or millions of bucks, that's great. Just pay your fair share in taxes. A fair tax code is how we invest things to make this country great. Healthcare, education, defense, and so much more. But here's the deal. The last administration enacted a $2 trillion tax cut, overwhelmingly benefit the top 1%. The very wealthy and the biggest corporations, and exploded the federal deficit. They added more to the national debt than any presidential term in American history. Check the numbers. Folks at home, does anybody really think the tax code is fair? Do you really think the wealthy and big corporations need another $2 trillion tax break? I sure don't. I'm going to keep fighting like hell to make it fair. Under my plan, nobody earning less than $400,000 a year will pay an additional penny in federal taxes. Nobody, not one penny. And they haven't yet. In fact, the child tax credit I passed during the pandemic cut taxes for millions of working families and cut child poverty in half. Restore that child tax credit. No child should go hungry in this country. The way to make the tax code fair is to make big corporations and the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Remember in 2020, 55 of the biggest companies in America made $40 billion and paid zero in federal income tax. Zero. Not anymore. Thanks to the law I wrote and we signed, big companies have to pay a minimum of 15%. But that's still less than working people pay in federal taxes. It's time to raise corporate minimum tax to at least 21%. So every big corporation finally begins to pay their fair share. I also want to end tax breaks for big pharma, big oil, private jets, massive executive pay when it's only supposed to be $1 million that could be deducted. They can pay them $20 million if they want, but deduct $1 million. End it now. You know, there are 1,000 billionaires in America. You know what the average federal tax is for those billionaires? No. They're making great sacrifices, 8.2%. That's far less than the vast majority of Americans pay. No billionaire should pay a lower federal tax rate than a teacher, a sanitation worker, or a nurse. I propose a minimum tax for billionaires of 25%, just 25%. You know what that would raise? That would raise $500 billion over the next 10 years. And imagine what that could do for America. Imagine a future with affordable child care. Millions of families can get they need to go to work to help grow the economy. Imagine a future with paid leave, because no one should have to choose between working and taking care of their sick family member. Imagine the future of home care and elder care, and people living with disabilities so they can stay in their homes and family caregivers can finally get the pay they deserve. Tonight, let's all agree once again to stand up for seniors. Many of my friends on the other side of the aisle want to put Social Security on the chopping block. If anyone here tries to cut Social Security or Medicare or raise the retirement age, I will stop you. The working people who built this country pay more into Social Security than millionaires and billionaires do. It's not fair. We have two ways to go. Republicans can cut Social Security and give more tax breaks to the wealthy. That's the proposal. Oh no, you guys don't want another $2 trillion tax cut? I kind of thought that's what your plan was. Well, that's good to hear. You're not going to cut another $2 trillion for the super wealthy. That's good to hear. I'll protect and strengthen Social Security and make the wealthy pay their fair share. Look, too many corporations raise prices to pad their profits, charging more and more for less and less. That's why we're cracking down on corporations that engage in price gouging and deceptive pricing, from food to health care to housing. In fact, the snack companies think you won't notice if they change the size of the bag and put a hell of a lot fewer, same size bag, put fewer chips in it. No, I'm not joking. It's called shrinkflation. Pass Bobby Casey's bill and stop this. I really mean it. You probably all saw that commercial on Snickers bars. You get charged the same amount, and you got about, I don't know, 10% fewer Snickers in it. Look, I'm also getting rid of junk fees, those hidden fees at the end of your bill that are there without your knowledge. My administration announced we're cutting credit card late fees from $32 to $8. Banks and credit card companies are allowed to charge what it costs them to instigate the collection. And that's a hell of a lot like $8 and 30-some dollars. They don't like it. The credit card companies don't like it. But I'm saving American families $20 billion a year with all the junk fees I'm eliminating. Folks at home, that's why the banks are so mad. It's $20 billion in profit. I'm not stopping there. My administration has proposed rules to make cable, travel, utilities, and online ticket sellers tell you the total price up front so there are no surprises. It matters. It matters. And so does this. In November, my team began serious negotiation with a bipartisan group of senators. The result was a bipartisan bill with the toughest set of border security reforms we've ever seen. Oh, you don't think so? Oh, you don't like that bill, huh? That conservatives got together and said it was a good bill? I'll be darned. That's amazing. That bipartisan bill would hire 1,500 more security agents and officers, 100 more immigration judges to help tackle the backload of 2 million cases, 4,300 more asylum officers, and new policies so they can resolve cases in 6 months instead of 6 years now. What are you against? 100 more high-tech drug detection machines to significantly increase the ability to screen and stop vehicles smuggling fentanyl into America. That's killing thousands of children. This bill would save lives and bring order to the border. It will also give me and any new president new emergency authority to temporarily shut down the border when the number of migrants at the border is overwhelming. The Border Patrol Union has endorsed this bill. The Federal Chamber of Commerce is, yeah. You're saying low. Look at the facts. I know you know how to read. I believe that given the opportunity for a majority in the House and Senate would endorse the bill as well, a majority right now. But unfortunately, politics has derailed this bill so far. I'm told my predecessor called members of Congress in the Senate to demand they block the bill. He feels a political win. He viewed it as a political win for me and a political loser for him. It's not about him. It's not about me. I'd be a winner. Not really. Lincoln Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of the thousands of people being killed by illegals? To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself. I understand. But look, if we change the dynamic at the border, people pay these smugglers $8,000 to get across the border because they know if they get by and let into the country, it's 6 to 8 years before they have a hearing. And it's worth taking the chance of the $8,000. But if it's only 6 weeks, the idea is it's highly unlikely that people will pay that money and come all that way, knowing that they'll be able to be kicked out quickly. Folks, I would respectfully suggest my Republican friends owe it to the American people, get this bill done. We need to act now. And if my predecessor is watching, instead of paying politics and pressuring members of Congress to block the bill, join me in telling the Congress to pass it. We can do it together. But that's what here's what he will not do. I will not demonize immigrants saying they are poison in the blood of our country. I will not separate families. I will not ban people because of their faith. Unlike my predecessor on my first day in office, I introduced a comprehensive bill to fix our immigration system. Take a look at it. It has all these and more. Secure the border. Provide a pathway to citizenship for dreamers, and so much more. But unlike my predecessor, I know who we are as Americans. We're the only nation in the world with a heart and soul that draws from old and new. Home to Native Americans, whose ancestors have been here for thousands of years. Home to people of from every place on earth. They came freely. Some came in chains. Some came when famine struck, like my ancestral family in Ireland. Some to flee persecution, to chase dreams that are impossible anywhere but here in America. That's America. And we all come from somewhere, but we're all American. Look, folks, we have a simple choice. We can fight about fixing the border, or we can fix it. I'm ready to fix it. Send me the border bill now. A transformational moment in history happened 59 years ago today in Selma, Alabama. Hundreds of foot soldiers for justice marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, named after the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan, to claim their fundamental right to vote. They were beaten, they were bloody, and left for dead. Our late friend and former colleague, John Lewis, was on that march. We miss him. Joining us tonight Our other marchers, both in the gallery and on the floor, including Betty Mae Fikes, known as the voice of Selma, the daughter of gospel singers and preachers. She sang songs of prayer and protest on that bloody Sunday to help shake the nation's conscience. 5 months later, the Voting Rights Act passed and was signed into law. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But 59 years later, there are forces taking us back in time. Voter suppression, election subversion, unlimited dark money, extreme gerrymandering. John Lewis was a great friend to many of us here, but if you truly want to honor him and all the heroes who marched with him, then it's time to do more than talk. Pass the Freedom to Vote Act, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. And stop denying another core value of America, our diversity across American life. Banning books, it's wrong. Instead of erasing history, let's make history. I want to protect fundamental rights. Pass the Equality Act. And my message to transgender Americans, I have your back. Pass the PRO Act for workers' rights. Raise the federal minimum wage, because every worker has a right to a decent living more than $7 an hour. We're also making history by confronting the climate crisis, not denying it. I don't think any of you think there's no longer a climate crisis. At least I hope you don't. I'm taking the most significant action ever on climate in the history of the world. I'm cutting our carbon emissions in half by 2030, creating tens of thousands of clean energy jobs, like the IBEW work is building and installing 500,000 electric vehicle charging stations. Conserving 30% of America's lands and waters by 2030. And taking action on environmental justice fence line communities smothered by the legacy of pollution. And pattern after the Peace Corps and AmeriCorps, I launched the Climate Corps to put 20,000 young people to work in the forefront of our clean energy future. I'll triple that number in a decade. To state the obvious, all Americans deserve the freedom to be safe. And America is safer today than when I took office. Year before I took office, murder rates went up 30%. 30% they went up. The biggest increase in history. It was then, through my American Rescue Plan, which every American voted against, I might add, we made the largest investment in public safety ever. Last year, the murder rate saw the sharpest decrease in history. Violent crime fell to one of its lowest levels in more than 50 years. But we have more to do. We have to help cities invest in more community police officers, more mental health workers, more community violence intervention. Give communities the tool to crack down on gun crime, retail crime, and carjacking. Keep building trust, as I've been doing by taking executive action on police reform and calling for it to be the law of the land. Directing my cabinet to review the federal classification of marijuana and expunging thousands of convictions for the mere possession, because no one should be jailed for simply using or have it on their record. Take on crimes of domestic violence. I'm ramping up the federal enforcement of the Violence Against Women Act that I proudly wrote when I was a senator, so we can finally end the scourge against women in America. There are other kinds of violence I want to stop. With us tonight is Jasmine, whose 9-year-old sister Jackie was murdered with 21 classmates and teachers in elementary school in Uvalde, Texas. Very soon after that happened, Jill and I went to Uvalde for a couple of days. We spent hours and hours with each of the families. We heard their message, so everyone in this room, in this chamber, could hear the same message. The constant refrain, and I was there for hours meeting with every family. They said, do something. Do something. Well, I did do something by establishing the first ever Office of Gun Violence Prevention in the White House that the Vice President is leading the charge. Thank you for doing it. Meanwhile, my predecessor told the NRA he's proud he did nothing on guns when he was president. Oh. After another shooting in Iowa recently, he said, when asked what to do about it, he said, just get over it. There was his quote, just get over it. I say, stop it. Stop it, stop it, stop it. I'm proud we beat the NRA when I signed the most significant gun safety law in nearly 30 years because of this Congress. We now must beat the NRA again. I'm demanding a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Pass universal background checks. None of this. I taught the Second Amendment for 12 years. None of this violates the Second Amendment or vilifies responsible gun owners. You know, as we manage challenges at home, we're also managing crises abroad, including in the Middle East. I know the last 5 months have been gut-wrenching for so many people, for the Israeli people, for the Palestinian people, and so many here in America. This crisis began on October 7th with a massacre by a terrorist group called Hamas, as you all know. 1,200 innocent people, women and girls, men and boys, slaughtered after enduring sexual violence. The deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust, and 250 hostages taken. Here in this chamber tonight are families whose loved ones are still being held by Hamas. I pledge to all the families that we will not rest until we bring every one of your loved ones home. We also We will also work around the clock to bring home Evan and Paul, Americans being unjustly detained by the Russians and others around the world. Israel has the right to go after Hamas. Hamas ended this conflict by releasing hostages, laying down arms, could end it by releasing the hostages, laying down arms, and surrendering those responsible for October 7th. But Israel has Israel has an added burden because Hamas hides and operates among the civilian population like cowards, under hospitals, daycare centers, and all the like. Israel also has a fundamental responsibility, though, to protect innocent civilians in Gaza. This war has taken a greater toll on innocent civilians than all previous wars in Gaza combined. More than 30,000 Palestinians have been killed, most of whom are not Hamas. Thousands and thousands of innocents, women and children, girls and boys, also orphaned. Nearly 2 million more Palestinians under bombardment or displacement. Homes destroyed, neighborhoods in rubble, cities in ruin. Families without food, water, medicine. It's heartbreaking. I've been working nonstop to establish an immediate ceasefire that would last for 6 weeks to get all the prisoners released, all the hostages released, to get the hostages home and ease the intolerable and humanitarian crisis and build toward an enduring, a something more enduring. The United States has been leading international efforts to get more humanitarian assistance to Gaza. Tonight, I'm directing the U.S. military to lead an emergency mission to establish a temporary pier in the Mediterranean on the coast of Gaza that can receive large shipments carrying food, water, medicine, and temporary shelters. No U.S. boots will be on the ground. A temporary pier will enable a massive increase in the amount of humanitarian assistance getting into Gaza every day. And Israel must do its part. Israel must allow more aid into Gaza to ensure humanitarian workers aren't caught in the crossfire. And they're announcing they're going to have a crossing in northern Gaza. To the leadership of Israel, I say this: humanitarian assistance cannot be a secondary consideration or a bargaining chip. Protecting and saving innocent lives has to be a priority. As we look to the future, the only real solution to the situation is a two-state solution over time. And I say this as a lifelong supporter of Israel. My entire career, no one has a stronger record with Israel than I do. I challenge any of you here. I'm the only American president of Israel in wartime. But there is no other path that guarantees Israel's security and democracy. There is no other path that guarantees Palestinians can live in peace with peace and dignity. And there's no other path that guarantees peace between Israel and all of its neighbors, including Saudi Arabia, with whom I'm talking. Creating stability in the Middle East also means containing the threat posed by Iran. That's why I built a coalition of more than a dozen countries to defend international shipping and freedom of navigation in the Red Sea. I've ordered strikes to degrade the Houthi capability and defend U.S. forces in the region. As Commander-in-Chief, I will not hesitate to direct further measures to protect our people and our military personnel. For years, I've heard many of my Republican and Democratic friends say that China is on the rise and America is falling behind. They've got it backwards. I've been saying it for over 4 years, even when I wasn't president. America's rising. We have the best economy in the world. And since I've come to office, our GDP is up, our trade deficit with China is down to the lowest point in over a decade. And we're standing up against China's unfair economic practices. We're standing up for peace and stability across the Taiwan Straits. I've revitalized our partnership and alliance in the Pacific. India, Australia, Japan, South Korea, the Pacific Islands. I've made sure that the most advanced American technologies can't be used in China, not allowing to trade them there. Frankly, for all this tough talk on China, it never occurred to my predecessor to do any of that. I want competition with China, not conflict. And we're in a stronger position to win the conflict of the 21st century against China than anyone else, for that matter, than any time as well. Here at home, I've signed over 400 bipartisan bills, but there's more to pass my unity agenda. Strengthen penalties on fentanyl trafficking. You don't want to do that, huh? Pass bipartisan privacy legislation to protect our children online. Harness the promise of AI to protect us from peril. Ban AI voice impersonations and more. And keep our truly sacred obligation to train and equip those we send into harm's way and care for them and their families when they come home and when they don't. That's why the song Support and Help of Dennis and the VA, I signed the PACT Act. One of the most significant laws ever, helping millions of veterans exposed to toxins who now are battling more than 100 different cancers. Many of them don't come home. but we owe them and their families support. We owe it to ourselves to keep supporting our new health research agency called ARPA-H, and remind us that we can do big things like end cancer as we know it, and we will. Let me close with this. Yay. I know you don't want to hear any more, Lindsay, but I got to say a few more things. I know it may not look like it, but I've been around a while. When you get to be my age, certain things become clearer than ever. I know the American story. Again and again, I've seen the contest between competing forces in the battle for the soul of our nation, between those who want to pull America back to the past and those who want to move America into the future. My lifetime has taught me to embrace freedom and democracy, a future based on core values that have defined America: honesty, decency, dignity, equality, to respect everyone, to give everyone a fair shot, to give hate no safe harbor. Now, other people my age see it differently. The American story of resentment, revenge, and retribution, that's not me. I was born amid World War II, when America stood for the freedom of the world. I grew up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and Claymont, Delaware, among working-class people who built this country. I watched in horror as two of my heroes, like many of you did, Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy, were assassinated. And their legacies inspired me to pursue a career in service. I left the law firm and became a public defender because my city of Wilmington was the only city in America occupied by the National Guard after Dr. King was assassinated because of the riots. And I became a county councilman almost by accident. I got elected to the United States Senate when I had no intention of running at age 29. Then vice president of our first black president. Now president to the first women vice president. In my career, I've been told I was too young. By the way, they didn't let me on the Senate elevators for votes sometimes. Not a joke. And I've been told I'm too old. Whether young or old, I've always known what endures. I've known our North Star. The very idea of America is that we're all created equal and deserve to be treated equally throughout our lives. We've never fully lived up to that idea, but we've never walked away from it either. And I won't walk away from it now. I'm optimistic. I really am. I'm optimistic, Nancy. My fellow Americans, the issue facing our nation isn't how old we are, it's how old are our ideas. Hate, anger, revenge, retribution are the oldest of ideas. But you can't lead America with ancient ideas that only take us back. You lead America, the land of possibilities. You need a vision for the future and what can and should be done. Tonight you've heard mine. I see a future where defending democracy, you don't diminish it. I see a future where we restore the right to choose and protect our freedoms, not take them away. I see a future where the middle class finally has a fair shot and the wealthy have to pay their fair share in taxes. I see a future where we save the planet from the climate crisis and our country from gun violence. Above all, I see a future for all Americans. I see a country for all Americans. and I will always be president for all Americans, because I believe in America. I believe in you, the American people. You're the reason we've never been more optimistic about our future than I am now. So let's build the future together. Let's remember who we are. We are the United States of America. And there is nothing beyond our capacity when we act together. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Sometimes there was cognitive impairment.
Did well. Very good.
I'm working real hard.
You fired us all up.
Yeah, you fired us.
Great.
Hey, Brad.
Hey, God.
I want you to know the Democratic Party is not
Try to see if I can get out of the way. And I get out of the way so y'all can take this.
So I got a call. I got a call every morning when you're away. I said, honey, how are you doing? She said, fine. He said, what's the matter? I said, nothing. What's the matter? She said, did you read today's paper? And I said, no. There's nothing to do. I said, they don't have the many things you want. I said, well, headline, top of the polls, Biden, coolest man in Congress. Is that true? That's true. Like I was cheating on somebody.
I was competing to make it a second course.
But you didn't.
Thank you, Molly Strong. Thank you so much.
By the way, it's all done.
Thank you. Get that aid to Israel, also security.
This way, ma'am. This way.
I actually wanted to go that way so I could say hello to the camera. We have to go now because there's chairs right there.
I'll be there.
I have my team over there.
I know. Mr. President, great job tonight. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. You're not going to be part of it.
Thanks for coming out. Yeah, no, it's like you're not. Seriously.
Good job, Mr. Tammy Duckworth
Thanks
down here
for
trying to get to you, and she can't get out.
I'll get the team.
Thanks for really.
It's going to turn around.
Hey, man, then we can swap with you. How about that?
Sorry about that. You did a home though.
I know I did if she says it. I know that happened.
Okay, we're walking this way, so we're
going that way?
Yep, we're going this way, right? Go back. Go back.
Thank you, guys.
Adam, do you got any space behind you?
Nope.
Good. We're going to see you for the first debate in my district. Texas State. Right where LBJ's statue stands.
Say hello to Senator Duckworth. She and I led the House Senate bill on our behalf.
I shouted real loud. I hope you heard
There you go. You know, you got to come back to Pennsylvania, back to the Lehigh Valley. They loved you. They loved you there. I know. You don't have to tell me. I know. I know. You think you're in the prettier. You have the prettier part. Well, we can agree.
Got the speech?
Yes, right. You knocked it out of the park.
knocked around. I don't want to get in front of them.
The best ever.
That's really good.
Mr. President, you brought the Irish fire tonight. We appreciate it, sir.
You know,
Proud of you.
I was there, Mr. President. It was incredible. gave to my great-great-grandfather. He made the bricks.
Do it again. In the church. I want to get y'all doing it. Not just, no, take a picture. I want it natural.
We're going to get you to the Indy 500.
You kicked ass and took name.
Sorry. I know.
I bet that torque is, come on.
I've had the Secret Service test track, which is an older thing.
You're not my wife.
And you're a torque junkie like me.
He's afraid you're going to get in the car.
Oh, yeah, it's your BFF.
If I can get him to do this. Can I get a picture of the senator and me on our... No, not... You're not going to hold it. We're getting...
We got it. We got it.
This is our IVF.
All right. For IVF, and we put up to freedom.
Thank you. Got it over to you.
I'll try to get out of here.
You guys exiting? Thank you so much. My stuff is back there. Okay, I'll go around. Can you take this? Yes. How are you, ma'am?
Good. I saw you earlier. How's everything going? Yeah,
Where is she?
I know it.
Maybe I can find a way to see her. You better say hi.
I'm so proud of you.
Proud of you. Proud to be with you.
How are you doing? For everything you've done for New Mexico.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
You knocked it out of the park.
Yes,
It's amazing.
you're amazing.
I'm getting texts from everybody at home watching you saying, wow. Jumping up and down. My mom jumping up and down saying, phenomenal.
Where's your mom?
In Houston, Texas.
Yes, sir.
We got me.
Give me your phone. I'll call her.
Really? Okay. He's going to take her number? Yeah, that would be amazing. That would be amazing. 713.
Make a congressman outside.
588. Deborah?
Equal to the Constitution. I'm taking her. I'm good. How are you? Long time no see. So I'm going to try right here.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, sir.
You're on top.
Okay.
I must have called. HR 40.
Yes, sir. HR 40. Great. Phil Jackson. Thank you.
You kidding?
Congressman, should we take a photo right here? Right here. There we go. Excellent. Sounds good. Excellent.
Did you get a signing?
I did. I got multiple.
Thank you.
Excellent.
We appreciate you. I'm out of your life and out of your world.
Right this way.
Thank you. I have stuff back here that I have to do.
Right, I think around is probably best.
It's a great picture for Governor Trump.
Give me the number.
For the governor's dad.
There you go.
Yes, 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 yes. Yes.
You live here, you will be away from me to move on this door.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. I'm happy to do my part.
I was in Kiev 2 Saturdays. You gave a very strong message. Right on. You got to get this done.
I don't have some kind of relationship with you.
Seminal moment in American world history.
I agree, and I want to joke and say history's watching. We're going to write about this one. I don't mean my speech, I mean this one.
They'll write about that speech. They're write about the speech.
Good to see you.
Dave Amo from Rhode Island.
Good
You
to
got
see
me here.
I didn't get you guys job. I was happy you're here, little man.
Congressman, if you go to the aisle,
My 12-year-old referred to you as her BFF. I sent a photo and she said, oh, it's my BFF.
Do me a favor.
She said, don't forget to tell him he invited me to the White House.
Well, I did.
You did. Oh, I know. Well, okay, who do I talk to?
Everybody. You got a number?
Yes, sir. I was at class.
You should be doing it.
Yes, sir.
If you guys are trying to get him.
Yeah, well, my kids are pretty lovely. You probably like to run the
I love the give and take you gave with her friends across the aisle there.
Mr. President, former Congressman from Detroit, and what you've accomplished for those people is sensational. It really is. You're doing it. Tonight, this was the most tremendous. I've been to 8 State of the Union addresses in Mississippi. It's right. Thank you for being for the country.
Eugene, my best friend. Right here.
Hi, Catherine Klein.
This is my best friend, Catherine. I love her.
So we have a very important presentation.
Good to see you.
My daughter, Greta, met you at a number of pictures. You were so kind. You held her up. She said, what do I call her? You said college. High school. On President's Day had them paint pictures, and she has insisted that I give you the paint. She painted a view.
By the way, am I here tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
Where are you tomorrow?
I'm here in Columbus. My wife's outside, so you might say
if you have a chance, come over to the Oval. We'll give you a time. I frame all this
Well, she is enamored with you, and it makes parenting hard because you said call her Joe. We say President Biden, but she said
Joe is good enough. Okay, so give me your time.
Yes, sir. I'll put on the back.
The information's on the back. Thank you.
Mr. President, you kicked ass.
That was so cool.
You know, I could
Certainly was.
Absolutely.
no, you're good, Admiral Faye. I got you. I know you are, ma'am.
He knocked tails apart.
Put on those glasses.
Harry Truman said,
We got dark brown.
they said, give him hell. Harry says, I'm not giving him hell. I'm just telling the truth. They think it's hell.
That's exactly right. They don't like to hear it.
Mr. President, you were fantastic. Thank you
You are
so
national
much.
president.
Michigan loves you so much, Mr. President. We're excited to have you there as much as you
I am
want.
holding up everybody here.
Thank you very much.
I'm so sorry to keep you guys waiting.
Privilege.
By the way, all kidding aside, listen, David Charter, I mean, really and truly, you think about it. They tell us it was cheap all the time. You're the finest writing force in the history of the world. I don't think the history of the world.
Stop! I didn't
No one will excuse my expression as a patch on my back. I really mean it. Think of what you do. Everywhere I go, and some of you have been to these international meetings I go to, the CEO, the president pull me aside and go, you gotta stay with us. We need you going to. I want our democracy to push to get out of this. There's so much at stake if we lose it. I mean, it's so much bigger. Oh, it just drives me crazy. Thank you. Thanks for accepting the appointment. About time we had someone strong running around. Anyway. Well, thanks. Thanks.
Mr. President, I'm the ambassador of Romania.
Well, how are you? I spent a lot of time in your country, as you know.
I know, twice, 2009.
That's exactly right. Spent a lot of time.
And Dr.
Yes. I was worried she wasn't going to come home.
Yeah. You told me once. Yeah, and we have a picture.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right away.
The best part of her speech was
care.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. President.
Thank you.
Very nice to see you, sir.
Thank you. I keep telling these guys they're working his pecs. You okay?
Doing good.
You need it.
No, doing good.
Am I going? Which way am I going?
Right here. Right here.
You know which way am I going?
And then right this way. We're going to go up right there.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. Give this to my assistant and then we'll call and see.
We're just going to follow the Sergeant of Arms this way, sir.
Now we've got
Yep.
President, Congressman Frank Irving
How are you?
Fine, and you?
I'm well, thank you. Very well. You get to say, Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States. Really appreciate it. It's awesome.
It really is. I know you know.
all steel workers. Steel industry.
Exactly. By the way, you got to because the amount of carbon used in steel and cement is gigantic. It's gigantic. We can do something about it and all of us.
Transformation. Thank you for standing up for the working man.
You kidding me? If I did, my grandfather could back to heaven.
Same with my father.
What was your dad's name?
Frank. Was a state senator for 40 years.
You're kidding.
He's dedicated him and my mom.
My great-grandfather was the first Catholic elected to the state senate. Actually, the second. He was elected to the state senate. And they accused him when he was running of being the Molly Maguire. When he found out he wasn't going to hold this.
Her father's a Catholic. He was in the state senate also.
Your dad alive?
He is 90 going to be 91. I'm blessed.
Can I get his phone number?
I will give that to you.
Promise?
I promise you, right here. He and my mom. Mr. President, thank you very much for all you do. Most people can't leave until we leave, and we need to go this way.
Well, they're Democrats or Republicans.
We got both up there.
I'm joking. I'm sorry, you got to stay there.
They have to say that.
Oh, I get that.
Yes, I'm going to go this way, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Please, Joe Morello.
Yeah, Joe. By the way, you got
That would be great.
By the way, we got some funding.
I know we did. I know. We're excited about you. You have no idea. Regional tech hubs, man. I talk about you all the time.
You have no idea.
You're going to do great things.
Just getting out. Let's go.
I know. You went to school in Syracuse.
That's
we
right.
know that. We know. Thank you, Mr. President.
We're going to follow the Sergeant of Arms.
Yep. Mr. President.
I heard he said
thank you for standing so much. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
It made me feel good.
I knew I was in your line of sight, so I was like,
You really were.
I was ready. I was
You got
hyping.
some eyes, kid.
Thank you.
this way. She's right here. Thanks for all the goodies. Don't worry, Mr.
This is one of the big guys.
Great speech. Really nice. I was telling your secretary, I was in Jordan and Israel this weekend, and just, you got to keep pushing what you're doing on the humanitarian stuff and all this stuff. So,
I told Baby, so many people. I said, Baby, you know I should come to Jesus. Sure, just that might go good. That was good.
we'll see you, Mr.
So good. Talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah. Mr. President, great job.
Thank you for standing up, making me feel good.
Right? No, great. Fantastic. It's game time now.
Okay. Guess I'm holding everybody up.
Not at all. Way to go.
We're glad to wait.
This is a suggestion for your political staff.
House come to order.
Would you mind a selfie? I would love a selfie. Thank you. I'll sign it and send it. All right. Do that. Really. Do it. And I'll say nice take. Yeah. We're going to work.
No, I was being polite.
You knocked it out of the ballpark.
Good to see you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Mr. President, you did amazing. Brittany from Colorado.
For what purpose?
So proud. That was awesome.
Louisiana seek recognition.
We're going to be fighting together.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the message of the President be referred to the Committee of the Whole on the State of the Union.
I couldn't run without him.
Without objection.
Could not run.
Mr. President.
Does the gentleman from Louisiana have a motion?
Thanks.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House is now adjourned.
The question is on the motion to adjourn. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. Accordingly, the House stands adjourned until 9 a.m.
Notice I told you.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm here.
Yes, and thank you for having Governor Lewis make this thing about it. Great. We all love him.
All right, Mr. President, great job.
Thanks, pal.
We're going to push that bipartisan Senate bill. We're trying to get everybody to make that our strategy to go after the different seats.
Mr. President, great speech. Loved it.
You take a risk standing all the time for me on the
I know. Wanted to keep coming back to Detroit. We need you.
We're coming back.
Yeah,
Can't get rid of it.
Really absolutely fantastic. The interruptions, that's just so new and different. I hope it wasn't.
It's a game they played. They did it last time. And I said, oh. And I got them all together. I said, you're not going to cut Social Security. And when I said, anybody going to cut Social Security, raise your hand.
I might.
That was a big one.
Great job, Mr. President. So proud of you.
Proud of you, proud of you. That means a lot.
People are saying you kicked butt back home. They texted me saying he kicked butt tonight.
As long as I'm with you, I'm okay.
Hey, and thank you for mentioning the talk tag.
That was important.
My guest is an immigrant Army veteran from the Gulf War. He went from 30% to 100%. His husband now gets benefits. He says, I'm now...
I didn't do it because of my son, but you know, the Pack he died.
Yes.
Being a quarter mile from a burn pit for a year.
Yes. Yes.
And his children had a shot for college and other things.
Yes, and the disability benefits is going to the survivors. This is really important. So
thank you, Mr. President.
Hi, Mr. President.
Love those glasses.
I am looking forward to welcoming you to Georgia on Saturday.
I'm coming down.
I know. I'll be with you.
All right.
And I need you to bring that energy with you that you just had tonight.
I got a lot of energy. That's my problem.
Well, we love it.
Thank
you. And we're going to bring it home for you on Tuesday.
I didn't do it.
No, you didn't.
I swear to God, I didn't do it.
No, listen, we need some help from the Forest Service. This symbolizes the 86 people that died in the fire in Paradise, California. They made this for me, the residents there, part of the wood that was salvaged. So I said as chair of the Forestry Committee, what I'm asking is that our Forest Service needs to speed up the pace with which we harvest forests and make our communities fire safe. And we just held a hearing in South Dakota with the Nyman family. They're going to lose their business soon. If we don't have them, the Forest Service will never, ever keep up by themselves. We've got to have the private sector. We've got to increase the pace and scale of forestry.
I
appreciate it.
You know, I've been there in North Dakota, too.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I've flown over more timber burned to the ground.
It's killing the wildlife.
Than make up the entire state of the state of Maryland. And by the way,
a million-acre fire in my district 2 years ago.
And by the way, if you notice, you fly over in a helicopter, those places with good roofs, they didn't burn.
With the right materials.
Yeah. So we got to change that. Anyway.
We got to cut some trees. We're holding people up to Bill. In business too, like Scranton, like folks just like Scranton. Thanks so much.
What are they saying, Scranton? You want me to sign it or something?
Oh no, I just want you to hold it. Think of the folks.
Thanks, man. I'm thinking of the folks.
Yep.
Some folks not thinking to start with Putin.
Not those folks. Thank you, sir. Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Okay.
By the way,
yes, sir.
The strongest support I have my entire career is firefighters. Delaware has the highest percentage of volunteer firefighters of any state in the union.
And we have fire school anyway.
We got a ton at home too, but we're working also. We're getting there on getting flat-sided tail like that when it's built.
Good.
We'll be good on that.
I mean,
help our woodcutters, help our forestry industry, please. Get our forest service tracking. Okay.
Right this way.
Mr. President, can you say hi to my niece?
what's your name?
Marissa.
Hey, Marissa, how are you? Who's this guy?
He's wearing his Irish shirt.
You got your Irish shirt on?
Brought the Irish fire tonight.
All right.
Great speech, Mr.
Thank you.
All right, we have people waiting
got a
for
great
us.
memory.
We got to continue walking out.
You got the speakers team here. Thanks for coming tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
Now we're here.
All right.
You're both on overtime now, right? Since you're both on overtime.
Well, we still have to go downstairs. Still has to
Yeah. The home stretch.
Yeah.
That's a
Very closest majority. It's historic. Thank you for taking the time to say that, sir.
It's within the majority of the
Thank you, Mr. President. We appreciate that, sir.
Stick
Right this way.
Right here, sir. Yep.
Okay.
Now we gotta go.
Right this way. We're straight out.
Straight out.
Straight out. All right.
Got Team Clyburn over here.
You're looking good, man.
Oh, so are you? So are
You're
you?
looking good. You always look like you have, I don't know who your haberdasher.
I told you, let's go shopping.
I'd like to.
Yeah, so this is Lindy. Also Team Clyburn. Yeah.
Lindy.
How are you? Good to see you again.
I work for Jim too.
Lena. Yeah.
Give me that.
Good man to work for here.
Oh,
Are
God,
you-
look at him. White button.
Turn around.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, wow. Oh my God. That's a good one, yeah.
Well, for the first time in memory, the president outlasted the House session, and they turned down the lights, and President Biden took over a half an hour to work his way off the House floor. We stayed with the House because they were in session up until the end there. That's a commitment that C-SPAN has had now since 1979. Katie Britt, the Republican from Alabama, senator, started her response. We'll be playing that for you in just a few minutes. In the meantime, President Biden will be in Philadelphia tomorrow and Atlanta on Saturday for campaign events. Want to get your reaction to the president's speech and eventually to the Republican response. 202 is the area code, 748-8920 for Republicans, 748-8921 for Democrats. All others, 202-748-8922. We'll begin taking those in just a few minutes, but let's hear from Greta Brawner first.
As you noted, Peter, the president stayed in the chamber for 30 minutes after he gave tonight's speech. The length of his speech, though, this is from C-SPAN tonight, about 67 minutes and 32 seconds, and you can see how that compares to his previous addresses to Congress during this first term. Also, just want to remind viewers of some moments from tonight before we start getting their reaction to the State of the Union. President Biden, as many of you noted, addressed border security during his State of the Union address tonight. He also said this: if the United States walks away, it will put Ukraine at risk. My message to President Putin, who I've known for a long time, is simple. We will not walk away. We will not bow down. I will not bow down. Viewers can also react to this moment from the State of the Union. Tonight, I'm directing the U.S. military to lead an emergency mission to establish a temporary pier on the Mediterranean on the coast of Gaza that can receive large shipments. No U.S. boots will be on the ground, is what he had to say there. And then there is also this: President Biden on Roe v. Wade. With all due respect, justices, as he turned to those Supreme Court justices in the chamber, women are not without electoral or political power. You're about to realize just how much. And the president tonight also talked about January 6th. You can't love your country only when you win, is what he had to say. He also talked about Laken Riley, that Georgia student who was allegedly murdered by a Venezuelan illegal immigrant, holding up the button he was given by Marjorie Taylor Greene when he walked down the aisle this evening. And there's also this moment. Democrats broke out in another chant of 4 more years after Biden declared the state of our union is strong and getting stronger. This from a political science professor, Christina Bellantoni, who notes that Biden's prepared remarks in 2023 were 7,256 words. Tonight's remarks, 6,458 words. Exclamation points in his 2023 prepared remarks, 0. Tonight, there were 80. Peter?
Let's take some calls. You can see the number there on the screen. We will get to the Republican response in just a few minutes. Again, it's Katie Britt, Republican senator from Alabama. Henry in Minneapolis, what did you think of the president's speech? Henry, you with us? Not hearing him. Sorry about that. Let's try Michael out in Washington State, in Selah, Washington. Michael, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Please go ahead. What did you think of the president's speech?
Well, you know, it was nice to actually see him cognitive. I don't know what they did different there to get him all pepped up like that. But, you know, there's a couple of issues with the border and everything, and he's talking about guns killing people. But yet we had a Washington State trooper here in Washington that was killed by an illegal alien that came across and had none of his documentation or anything now going through there. Then he's disrespecting the Supreme Court justices in front of the nation. What's that say about, you know, his respect towards the laws of our land? I'm a blue-collar, hardworking blue-collar worker, and to hear him talk about January 6th again, where that's now being all discredited of what they've been saying, and us hardworking Americans are seeing this, and we're really getting tired of the lies. You know, if you're going to pass a bill, then stop adding all the beef to the bill and get it passed.
That's Michael, a Republican in Selah, Washington. Should let you know that even though the House chamber is finally emptied out, Statuary Hall is not. The media is still very present there. Members of Congress are there. And if you tune into C-SPAN 2, if you're interested in hearing more about what members of Congress thought about the speech, tune into C-SPAN 2. You can watch the members there. Cody, Frisco, Texas, Independent Line. Cody, how'd the president do tonight?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me on. You know, I think you did well on a lot of points. But I have to say that the comments about the Israel-Gaza situation are just out of control. Building a pier, you know, this is grandstanding. Man, the U.S. has blocked every resolution for a ceasefire, you know, globally, and it's grandstanding. Building a pier while investing $14 billion into the weapons that are creating the Gaza suffering. That's just unreal. And just the level of hypocrisy is just unreal. And I hope the American people see that.
Wendy is next, a Republican in Caddo Mills, Texas. Wendy, good evening to you.
Good evening. The speech tonight, I was very disappointed. what I'd like to see is I'd like to see our military step in and take control of our country or do something. Biden has lied, told so many lies. It was just ridiculous. And, you know, us people out here, I'm from a small town. There's people calling me needing food. There's people desperate out there. The more and more that they leave him in office or elect him, it's just getting too bad. And, you know, he didn't even mention hardly anything about the economy. Our economy's failing. It's terrible. And I demand that the military step in and do something about this. Evidently, Congress and no one's doing anything.
Wendy, what would you like the military to do?
I'd like them to step in and drain the swamp. That's what I want to happen.
That's Wendy in Texas. Greta Bronner has more reaction.
From tonight's State of the Union address, many folks saw the president's cabinet come down the center aisle before the president came into the chamber. Before they arrived at the Capitol, the Interior Secretary snapped a selfie with her and the rest of the cabinet, saying they're grateful for another year with an amazing cabinet dedicated to public service and achieving the president's ambitious goals. The only cabinet secretary not in that picture was the Education Secretary, Miguel Cardona, because he was tonight's designated survivor. And then there is also this from Eli Stokel reporting yesterday that the president's cabinet first met on the State of the Union back in December. President Biden saw the first full draft in late February, and there have been dozens of revisions since then. Also, you might have noticed that not all of the Supreme Court justices were in the chamber tonight. 6 out of 9 from Doug Adams of NBC were in attendance. The ones that were missing were Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, and Amy Coney Barrett. And also this note from Jake Sherman of Punchbowl News. Usually the Speaker of the House introduces the president by saying, "Members of Congress, I have the high privilege and the distinct honor of presenting to you the President of the United States." Doesn't happen always, but usually, and avid C-SPAN viewers will notice that it did not happen tonight. Jake Sherman says it could be that Biden just started without waiting for the introduction. Peter?
Lynn's calling in from Cottonwood, California, Democrat. Lynn, how did President Biden do tonight?
I thought that he did exceptionally well. You know, I was listening to the Republican response. I thought that the lady in Texas is scary. And, you know, he has done so much. I do not think that we should have troops on the ground. I do appreciate that President Biden in Israel is going to go and do something and get humanitarian aid in there. I appreciate that he pointed out the fact that Israel has a right to defend itself. However, the carnage in Gaza needs to stop. He didn't use carnage. I did. And I really do think that that's the case. But, you know, he has done so much for our economy. That's the other thing. Our economy is booming. I would say that to anybody that's in a red state and they feel that their economy is doing badly, to maybe look outside of the talking points of the Republican leaders and maybe actually go to the, you know, secretaries and take a look at the IRS, take a look at the economy, write letters, ask them about it, but become informed. Don't just listen. You need to read everything. I know how they feel. I know how badly they feel, but I'm sorry, former President Trump, he's indicted. He has been labeled a conspirator in the January 6th case. And in Arizona, the Supreme Court there actually said the same as they sent it up where he was supposed to be removed.
Hey, Lynn, I want to go back to something you said about the economy and about Gaza. Does the economy, in a sense, trump the Gaza issue when it comes to supporting Joe Biden?
Oh, I don't think that you can do that. You really can't. Those are two different things altogether. The economy we are strong economically. What's happening in Gaza, we need to support the Palestinians. We need a two-state solution, and we need to make sure that we do not put boots on the ground. We can't get drug in there.
What do you think about the president's call for a new pier into Gaza?
As long as we don't get any boots on the ground, I'm all for it.
Thank you, ma'am, for calling. Janine, Suffolk, Virginia. Independent line. Hi, Janine.
Hello.
Please go ahead. We're listening. What did you think of the president's speech?
Well, I called in on the other line because I feel that although I probably lean Republican in most presidential elections, I have voted Democrat in the past, so I'm totally open to that. I was not impressed with tonight's speech. I was trying to be optimistic, but I felt that it was really appealing more towards the base and didn't give me a sense of unity and things moving forward that I can count on that perhaps might give an edge to the current president to receive my vote. I'm still kind of up in the air. Military spouse for 30 years, and I have a son that's currently in uniform in flight school. So the military is really an important perspective and important for me overall. I don't feel that we're going in the right direction with that. Being said, the economy I still think is lacking, and I didn't hear that addressed this evening as much as I would have liked to. So overall, I'm still totally undecided, and I did not feel that the president earned my vote this evening.
Thank you for calling in, Janine. Hey, Greta, what else do you have for us?
Well, Eagle watchers of the floor tonight may have noticed a familiar face tonight. There is expelled Congressman George Santos on the floor for tonight's State of the Union address. Now, reporters did catch up with him tonight before the speech. Here's what he had to say.
Is this your first time back in the building? Yes, it's my first time back in the building. And you came why? State of the Union, why not? Okay. Have you received any of your colleagues or talked to them?
I was just visiting with some of my colleagues in a very bipartisan fashion.
And what's it like to be back, though?
It's different. It's different. Definitely the People's House. It's always a humbling experience, and it's always great to be back.
Do you think this will be the last time you come, or
I don't know.
you have your legal?
I don't know. I don't know about that. I couldn't. If I knew that, I'd be guessing the lottery first.
Are you trying to? I don't know. Do you want to come back someday in another congressional district, or?
I don't put anything past my desire to run for office at this point, but right now it's just I'm a spectator.
That was George Santos earlier. Chad Pergram of Fox News tweeting that video out. Now, you heard him, he was asked by a reporter there, are you considering another run? Right as the president started his State of the Union address, George Santos tweeted out that he is indeed running for Congress again. Here is the scoop by Roger Solenberger of The Daily. George Santos just filed to run for Congress again. He filed in New York's 1st district, not the 3rd district that he used to represent. That is Nick LaLotta's district. And here is Billy House watching the floor tonight. Looks like LaLotta may have learned of Santos's plan to primary him on the House floor during the State of the Union, while he and fellow New York Republicans Lawler, D'Esposito, and Molinaro were sitting together in the chamber. LaLotta looks at his phone and looks to the back of the room where Santos was standing. Now all four are sharing something and all have amused smiles, Lawler even laughing. So is LaLotta. LaLotta then responds to Santos's challenge to raise the standard in Congress and to hold a pathological liar who stole an election accountable. I led the charge to expel George Santos. If finishing the job requires beating him in a primary, count me in. Peter?
Let's go back to your calls. Lincoln's calling in from Pittsburgh. Democrats line. Lincoln, how did President Biden do tonight?
I love foreign policy, and I think that Biden needs to take a much, much stronger stance against China. China is on the back foot, like he said. They're having problems with population growth, GDP growth. Their property market is collapsing, and we have an opportunity to do the same thing we did to the Soviets to them. Ronald Reagan's arms race against the Soviet Union forced them to devote a large amount of their economy to the military, and it collapsed their economy. We can do the same thing with China. We can form the Southeast Asian Treaty Organization. We need to work with India and Taiwan and supplant ourselves into Asia. That's how we can secure U.S. hegemony for years to come. And I think he needs to make that a higher priority. But otherwise,
Lincoln, are you studying foreign policy in school?
Yes, I am, actually. I'm going to American University in D.C. for international relations. And right now I'm taking a gov class in my high school. Mrs. Klein, if you're watching, hi.
And what high school do you go to, Lincoln?
I go to Fox Chapel Area High School in Pittsburgh, PA, and I love it there. It's great.
Well, we appreciate you watching C-SPAN. We appreciate you calling in. Josh, Granville, Michigan, Independent Line. Josh, what do you think?
I thought the speech was great. I come from West Michigan. This is Grand Rapids. This is Gerald Ford country. Been a Republican stronghold back when my grandfather was my age and younger. He raised us to be Jerry Ford Republicans, folks that cared about small government. And I find the complete 180 a little concerning with the Republicans. They're not the Republicans that I grew up on. They've seemed to shy away from truth. It's concerning. 4 years ago, around this time, the nation was down in terms of the economy, jobs. We didn't know what was happening with COVID-19. We didn't know what to do. And I remember Donald Trump sitting, I believe it was the Situation Room when they were recording this, I could be incorrect, saying with his hands, it's like magic, it's going to disappear, and talking about injecting bleach and all types of nonsense. And Joe Biden has figured out a way, along with members of Congress, bipartisan, we haven't heard that in a long time, figured out a way to revive the economy again.
All right, Josh, we're going to have to leave it there. We appreciate your calling in from a state that could be contentious in the 2024 election. Well, President Biden, after he finished speaking about an hour ago, took 30 minutes greeting people and talking to people on the floor of the House. For the first time that I can remember, the House gavelled out of session toward the end of that talk. The president kept talking with people. We stayed with it, of course, here on C-SPAN. And in the meantime, there was a Republican response. Senator Katie Britt, first-termer, Alabama. She talked about 20 minutes ago or so, 30 minutes ago. And we're going to play that for you now in its entirety.
Good evening, America. My name is Katie Britt, and I have the honor of serving the people of the great state of Alabama in the United States Senate. However, that's not the job that matters most. I am a proud wife and mom of 2 school-aged kids. My daughter Bennett and my son Ridgway are why I ran for the Senate. I'm worried about their future and the future of children in every corner of our nation. And that's why I invited you into our home tonight. Like so many families across America, my husband Wesley and I just watched President Biden's State of the Union address from our living room. And what we saw was the performance of a permanent politician who has actually been in office for longer than I've been alive. One thing was quite clear, though. President Biden just doesn't get it. He's out of touch. Under his administration, families are worse off, our communities are less safe, and our country is less secure. I just wish he understood what real families are facing around kitchen tables just like this one. This is where our family has tough conversations. It's where we make hard decisions. It's where we share the good, the bad, and the ugly of our days. It's where we laugh together, and it's where we hold each other's hands and pray for God's guidance. and many nights, to be honest, it's where Wesley and I worry. I know we're not alone. And so tonight, the American family needs to have a tough conversation, because the truth is, we're all worried about the future of our nation. The country we know and love seems to be slipping away, and it feels like the next generation will have fewer opportunities and less freedoms than we did. I worry my own children may not even get a shot at living their American dreams. My American dream allowed me, the daughter of two small business owners from rural Enterprise, Alabama, to be elected to the United States Senate at the age of 40. Growing up, sweeping the floor at my dad's hardware store and cleaning the bathroom at my mom's dance studio, I never could have imagined what my story would entail. To think about what the American dream can do across just one generation, in just one lifetime, it's truly breathtaking. But right now, the American dream has turned into a nightmare for so many families. The true, unvarnished state of our union begins and ends with this: our families are hurting. Our country can do better. And you don't have to look any further than the crisis at our southern border to see it. President Biden inherited the most secure border of all time. But minutes after taking office, he suspended all deportations, he halted construction of the border wall, and he announced a plan to give amnesty to millions. We know that President Biden didn't just create this border crisis, he invited it with 94 executive actions in his first 100 days. When I took office, I took a different approach. I traveled to the Del Rio sector of Texas. That's where I spoke to a woman who shared her story with me. She had been sex trafficked by the cartels starting at the age of 12. She told me not just that she was raped every day, but how many times a day she was raped. The cartels put her on a mattress in a shoebox of a room, and they sent men through that door over and over again for hours and hours on end. We wouldn't be okay with this happening in a third world country. This is the United States of America, and it is past time, in my opinion, that we start acting like it. President Biden's border policies are a disgrace. This crisis is despicable. And the truth is, it is almost entirely preventable. From fentanyl poisonings to horrific murders, there are empty chairs tonight at kitchen tables just like this one because of President Biden's senseless border policies. Just think about Laken Riley. In my neighboring state of Georgia, this beautiful 22-year-old nursing student went out on a jog one morning, but she never got the opportunity to return home. She was brutally murdered by one of the millions of illegal border crossers President Biden chose to release into our homeland. Y'all, as a mom, I can't quit thinking about this. I mean, this could have been my daughter. This could have been yours. And tonight, President Biden finally said her name. But he refused to take responsibility for his own actions. Mr. President, enough is enough. Innocent Americans are dying, and you only have yourself to blame. Fulfill your oath of office. Reverse your policies. End this crisis and stop the suffering. Sadly, we know that President Biden's failures don't stop there. His reckless spending dug our economy into a hole and sent the cost of living through the roof. We have the worst inflation in 40 years and the highest credit card debt in our nation's history. Let that sink in. Hardworking families are struggling to make ends meet today. And with soaring mortgage rates and sky-high childcare costs, they're also struggling to how to plan for tomorrow. The American people are scraping by, while President Biden proudly proclaims that Bidenomics is working. Goodness, y'all, bless his heart, we know better. I'll never forget stopping at a gas station in Chilton County one evening. The gentleman working the counter told me that after retiring, he had to pick up a job in his 70s so that he didn't have to choose between going hungry or going without his medication. He said, I did everything right. I did everything I was told to do. I worked hard, I saved, I was responsible. He's not alone. I hear similar concerns from fellow parents, whether I am walking with my friends or whether I'm at my kids' games. But let's be honest, it's been a minute since Joe Biden pumped gas, ran a carpool, or even pushed a grocery cart. Meanwhile, the rest of us see our dollar and we know it doesn't go as far. We see it every day. And despite what he tells you, our communities are not safer. For years, the left has coddled criminals and defunded the police, all while letting repeat offenders walk free. The result is tragic, but foreseeable. From our small towns to America's most iconic city streets, life is getting more and more dangerous. And unfortunately, President Biden's weakness isn't just hurting families here at home. He is making us a punchline on the world stage. Look, where I'm from, your word is your bond. But for 3 years, the president has demonstrated that America's word doesn't mean what it used to. From abandoning our allies in his disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan to desperately pushing another dangerous deal with Iran, President Biden has failed. We've become a nation in retreat, and the enemies of freedom, they see an opportunity. Putin's brutal aggression in Europe has put our allies on the brink. Iran's terrorist proxies have slaughtered Israeli, Jews, and American citizens. They've targeted commercial shipping, and they've attacked our troops nearly 200 times since October, killing 3 U.S. soldiers and 2 Navy SEALs. Meanwhile, the Chinese Communist Party is undercutting America's workers. China is buying up our farmland, spying on our military installations, and spreading propaganda through the likes of TikTok. You see, the CCP knows that if it conquers the minds of our next generation, it conquers America. And what does President Biden do? Well, he bans TikTok for government employees, but creates an account for his own campaign. Y'all, you can't make this stuff up. Look, we all recall when presidents faced national security threats with strength and resolve. That seems like ancient history. Right now, our commander-in-chief is not in command. The free world deserves better than a dithering and diminished leader. America deserves leaders who recognize that secure borders, stable prices, safe streets, and a strong defense are actually the cornerstones of a great nation. Just ask yourself, are you better off now than you were 3 years ago? There's no doubt we're at a crossroads, and it doesn't have to be this way. We all feel it. But here's the good news. We, the people, are still in the driver's seat. We get to decide whether our future will grow brighter or whether we'll settle for an America in decline. Well, I know which choice our children deserve, and I know the choice the Republican Party is fighting for. We are the party of hard-working parents and families, and we want to give you and your children the opportunities to thrive. And we want families to grow. It's why we strongly support continued nationwide access to in vitro fertilization. We want to help loving moms and dads bring precious life into this world. Wesley and I believe there is no greater blessing in life than our children. And that's why tonight, I want to make a direct appeal to the parents out there, and in particular to my fellow moms, many of whom I know will be up tossing and turning at 2 a.m., wondering how you're going to be in 3 places at once and then somehow still get dinner on the table. First of all, we see you, we hear you, and we stand with you. I know you're frustrated. I know you're probably disgusted by most of what you see going on in Washington, and I'll be really honest with you, you're not wrong for feeling that way. Look, I get it. The task in front of us isn't an easy one, but I can promise you one thing. It is worth it. So I am asking you, for the sake of your kids and your grandkids, get into the arena. Every generation has been called to do hard things. American greatness rests in the fact that we always answer that call. It's who we are. Never forget, we are steeped in the blood of patriots who overthrew the most powerful empire in the world. We walk in the footsteps of pioneers who tamed the wild. We now carry forward the same flame of freedom as the liberators of an oppressed Europe. We continue to draw courage from those who bent the moral arc of the universe. And when we gaze upon the heavens, never forget that our DNA contains the same ingenuity that put man on the moon. America has been tested before, and every single time we've emerged unbowed and unbroken. Our history has been written with the grit of men and women who got knocked down. But we know their stories because they did not stay down. We are here because they stood back up. So now it's our turn, our moment to stand up and prove ourselves worthy of protecting the American dream. Together, we can reawaken the heroic spirit of a great nation. Because America, we don't just have a rendezvous with destiny. We take destiny's hand and we lead it. Our future starts around kitchen tables just like this, with moms and dads just like you. And you are why I believe with every fiber of my being that despite the current state of our union, our best days are still ahead. May God bless you, and may God continue to bless these United States of America.
And that was Senator Katie Britt, Republican of Alabama from Montgomery, giving the Republican response to President Biden's State of the Union address. Both the State of the Union address and the Republican response we will re-air in about 20 minutes or so after we finish taking your phone calls, hearing your views about both of these speeches. Mark, Jamaica, New York, Democrats line. What did you think of the president's speech, and what do you think of the state of our union?
Well, I